Richard Prosser.
Mr. Speaker, well, Mr. Speaker, here we go again. Another year. Another year has gone by, and another budget, another one of Bill English's U-Butte budgets. It's been foisted upon us. Another burnt offering, you might say, Mr. Speaker. I mean, he says it all very nicely. Mr. English speaks with a very velvety voice. I actually find it quite soporific, and I'm wondering if that might be a tactic on Bill English's part. If you can't convince your audience with the weight of your logic and the force of your argument, then just put them to sleep instead. Well, it's appropriate that he try that tactic now, because it almost worked, Mr. Speaker. But I found myself waking from the dream that he put me into to find I was in a nightmare. Because here we are again, yet again, another year gone by, talking about biosecurity. Talking about this government's lack of a proper approach to biosecurity. Yet again, it's almost like Groundhog Day. Mr. Speaker, budget time comes around and I find myself thinking, oh, what can I have a go at this year? And again, it's biosecurity. Because again, they still haven't done anything about it. They still haven't addressed the shortcomings, the fundamental shortcomings in their approach to biosecurity, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. English's velvety voice is actually it's the perfect illustration for Velvet Leaf. And Velvet Leaf is appropriate because it's the latest in this quite shameful litany of biosecurity failures that have happened under this government's watch. We've had PSA, we've had fruit fly, we've had black grass, Ngura burr, guava moth. The list just goes on and on and on. And Velvet Leaf is the latest incursion. And, Mr. Speaker, the Minister will tell us that more money is being spent. And through the smoke and the mirrors of the appropriations, it does look as if there is at first glance. Looks like there's more money being spent. But as always, that turns out to be a wee bit of a mirage when you drill down through the numbers. The total appropriation here we see has gone up by $9 million. That's great. Border biosecurity monitoring and clearance gone up by $7 million. But then when we look at funding for departmental output expenses, the revenue from the Crown is actually down by $16 million. And we look closer at border biosecurity monitoring and clearance, that's down by 50%. Whoa. It's fallen $18 million. $18 million. So, Minister Guy claims that biosecurity is his #1 priority, Mr. Speaker, and I believe him. I believe he's genuine when he makes that claim. But there are two things that are working against him, Mr. Speaker. One is the fact that his cabinet colleagues just simply don't appear to grasp the importance of biosecurity to our primary sector. They don't seem to understand how vitally important having good biosecurity is to the sector that provides 3/4 of the economy. Maybe that's because there aren't. The National Party is a shadow of its former self in terms of its roots, Mr. Speaker. There are just not enough farmers on the government benches at the moment, and certainly not enough in cabinet. But help us at hand. When New Zealand First is in charge in a year and a half's time, we will bring quite a few farmers with us. They are flocking to us even now from the ranks of people who've traditionally been national supporters. They're coming across to New Zealand First because they realise that we are the light, and we have stayed true to the original vision, I guess, that they started, but have now thrown away. So, the bottom line, the second thing working against them, Mr. Speaker, is that the methodology that they're following is just plainly and simply wrong. It's focused in the wrong way, it's applied in the wrong way, it's based on theories that are incorrect. And there's just not enough of it. The slice of the pie that is allocated to biosecurity is simply too small. So we've seen the introduction of the new biosecurity passenger levy, Mr. Speaker, and the proceeds from that will begin to filter through, and I imagine that's where the difference comes in, and the difference between what the total appropriation is and what the Crown revenue is. But we know that that's a replacement revenue stream. It's not new money. Now, when the bill went through last year, the government insisted for a long time that it was going to be additional money. We finally got it out of them that actually, no, it's just a simple replacement stream. So that system has failed, Mr. Speaker. The approach that they take using a risk-based assessment and basically pegging back what they do in terms of looking at the potential ramifications of organisms coming in has not worked. The danger in that, Mr. Speaker, is that every incursion that happens under this government's biosecurity regime that isn't foot and mouth disease brings the incursion that is foot and mouth disease one incursion closer. And when that happens, Mr. Speaker, when that happens, that will cost us $20 billion. And when that happens, it will be too late to say, oops, I told you so. When it has cost us $20 billion and put our primary sector on the back foot for months, if not years, a few more dollars on some quarantine sheds and a few more dollars on some extra lab tests will seem like chicken feed indeed, Mr. Speaker. Chicken feed's important because actually the velvet leaf may well have got into the system through chicken feed because we've been using this risk-based assessment, which assesses that imported maize, and this is where we suspect one of the pathways is in this case, that has come in, has been assessed as being destined for a process which will denature it and which will render any potential contaminants unviable. And I've spoken to the people from the poultry feed industry, and I believe them when they say they've gone through the processes that they think they have to go through, Mr. Speaker. It's not them who's at fault, it's the government, it's the system.
Member's time is...
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, he said once, I have